In the vast expanse of the Andromeda Galaxy, an advanced alien civilization known as the Veilith ruled over dozens of star systems with an iron grip. Their empire was built on conquest and dominance, their technology centuries ahead of most species. They encountered. To them, weaker races were either assimilated into their society or erased from existence altogether. For millennia, no one had dared to challenge their supremacy. The Veilith prided themselves on their superior intellect and cold logic. They viewed emotions like love, anger, and hope as primitive flaws that only hindered progress. In their archives, there existed ancient records warning about Earth, a small blue planet orbiting a nondescript yellow star in the Milky Way galaxy. These records spoke of humanity's unpredictability, creativity, and sheer determination. But the Veilith dismissed these warnings as myths, tales spun by lesser beings who feared what they didn't understand. After all, how could such fragile creatures pose any real threat? On Earth, life went on as usual. People worked, dreamed, laughed, and loved under the same sun that had shone for billions of years. Humanity remained blissfully unaware of the shadow looming at the edge of their galaxy. That is, until strange signals began disrupting global communication networks. Satellites malfunctioned, GPS systems failed, and eerie patterns emerged within the static of radio waves. Scientists scrambled to make sense of it, but nothing matched anything humanity had ever encountered before. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a brilliant astrophysicist working at a remote observatory in Chile, was among the first to notice something unusual. While analyzing data from deep space telescopes, she detected faint energy signatures emanating from beyond the galactic rim. At first, she thought it might be natural cosmic phenomena, perhaps a pulsar or some unknown form of radiation. But when her team cross-referenced the findings with other observatories around the world, they realized the pattern wasn't random. It was deliberate. Word spread quickly through scientific communities, eventually reaching governments worldwide. Emergency meetings were held behind closed doors, and classified briefings outlined the grim possibility. Earth was being watched. Some leaders panicked, others dismissed the claims as fear-mongering. Most civilians remained oblivious, going about their daily lives without realizing the storm brewing light years away. Meanwhile, aboard the Veilith flagship, Erindor, Commander Zyrak stood before his council of elders, reviewing holographic projections of Earth. "This planet holds nothing of value," he declared confidently. "Its inhabitants are divided, chaotic and technologically inferior. We can crush them easily if necessary." His words echoed through the chamber, met with nods of agreement from those seated around him. But not everyone shared Zyrak's certainty. Elder Silra, the oldest and wisest member of the council, raised a cautious hand. Her voice carried the weight of centuries. "Do not underestimate them," she warned. "The archives speak of their resilience, their ability to adapt and overcome even the direst circumstances. Many civilizations have fallen victim to their defiance." Zyrak scoffed. "Defiance? You mean recklessness. They lack unity, discipline, and purpose. What could they possibly do against us?" Silra's gaze hardened. "You would do well to remember our own history. There was a time when we too were fragmented, driven by emotion rather than reason. Do not let arrogance blind you." Unmoved, Zyrak ordered the fleet to prepare for reconnaissance. A single scout ship would approach Earth, probing its defenses or lack thereof, and determine whether further action was warranted. If the humans proved harmless, the Veilith would claim their resources and move on. If not, well, the outcome would be swift and decisive. Back on Earth, Dr. Vasquez and her colleagues pieced together more clues. The strange signals weren't just passive observations. They seemed to be scanning Earth, cataloging its surface, atmosphere, and population centers. Alarm bells rang louder within military and scientific circles. Governments quietly mobilized. Defense systems, though many doubted their effectiveness against whatever might come next. One evening, as Elena stared at the night sky through her telescope, she felt a chill run down her spine. She couldn't shake the feeling that humanity was standing on the precipice of something monumental. Whether it was salvation or destruction, she didn't know. All she knew was that Earth wasn't alone anymore. and soon everyone would find out. As dawn broke over the horizon, a blinding flash lit up the skies above Antarctica. The Veilith scout ship had arrived. The arrival of the Veilith scout ship over Antarctica sent shockwaves across the globe. Governments scrambled to respond, deploying military forces and scrambling satellites to monitor the alien vessel. News outlets broke the story within hours, sparking panic and disbelief among civilians. Social media erupted with theories ranging from doomsday prophecies to conspiracy-laden cover-ups. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and it wasn't clear whether this revelation would bring salvation or destruction. The scout ship itself remained eerily silent, hovering motionless above the icy wasteland. Its sleek obsidian surface reflected the sun's light like a mirror, making it nearly impossible to discern any details. It emitted no visible energy signatures, nor did it attempt communication. To many observers, it seemed less like a machine, and more like a sentient entity, observing Earth with detached curiosity. Dr. Elena Vasquez found herself thrust into the spotlight as one of the few experts who had anticipated such an event. She was summoned to a hastily assembled international task force at the United Nations headquarters in New York City. Alongside her were scientists, military leaders, diplomats, and even representatives from private space companies. The room buzzed with tension as everyone debated how to proceed. "We can't just sit here waiting for them to make the first move," argued General Marcus Hale, a grizzled veteran known for his no-nonsense demeanor. "If they're hostile, we need to show strength. Launching a preemptive strike might be our only chance." Eleanor shook her head firmly. "Attacking them without understanding their intentions could escalate things beyond control. We don't know what kind of technology they possess, or what they're capable of doing in response." Her words sparked heated arguments, with some siding with the general and others agreeing with Elena's cautious approach. Amidst the chaos, a young tech entrepreneur named Arjun Patel spoke up. Known for his innovative work in artificial intelligence, he proposed an unconventional idea: sending a message to the aliens using Earth's most universal language, music. "Music transcends barriers," Arjun explained, his voice calm but passionate. "It's emotional, creative, and uniquely human. If we want to prove that we're more than just another primitive species, why not introduce ourselves through something that defines us?" The suggestion was met with skepticism. Many dismissed it as naive or impractical, but Elena saw merit in the idea. "It's worth trying," she said finally. "At worst, it'll buy us time. At best, it might open a dialogue." With little else to go on, the task force agreed to give it a shot. A team led by Arjun worked tirelessly to compose a piece that represented humanity's diversity and spirit. They incorporated elements from classical symphonies, traditional folk songs, and modern electronic beats. The result was a hauntingly beautiful melody that pulsed with life, a sonic portrait of Earth itself. Using powerful radio transmitters, the signal was broadcast directly toward the scout ship. For several agonizing minutes there was no response. Then suddenly the ship began to change. Its reflective surface shimmered, rippling like water before splitting open to reveal a glowing core. From this core, a beam of light shot out, scanning the surrounding area with precision. Moments later, the scout ship transmitted its reply, not in words but in images. Thousands of holographic projections filled the air above Antarctica, depicting scenes of war, devastation, and conquest. Entire planets reduced to ash, civilizations wiped out, and survivors enslaved. It was a grim warning, meant to intimidate and terrify. But instead of cowering, humanity reacted in a way the Veilith hadn't anticipated. Around the world, people gathered in public squares, parks, and stadiums, holding candles and singing together. Inspired by the musical message sent earlier, communities spontaneously joined voices in harmony. Songs of hope, unity, and resilience echoed across continents, defying the ominous display projected by the alien craft. Inside the UN meeting room, Elena watched live footage of these impromptu gatherings with tears in her eyes. "This is who we are," she whispered. "Not perfect, not invincible, but united when it matters most." Even the hardened General Hale seemed moved. "Maybe music isn't so useless after all," he admitted gruffly. Back aboard the Erindor, Commander Zyrak viewed recordings of Earth's response with growing unease. He had expected fear, submission, or perhaps futile attempts at resistance. Instead, the humans had turned their supposed weakness, their emotions, into a show of collective strength. Even Elder Silra appeared intrigued, her expression unreadable. They says even when faced with annihilation, Zyrak muttered, perplexed. What kind of species does that? A dangerous one, Silra replied softly. One that refuses to be broken. As the Vaylith debated their next move, humanity continued to rally. In every corner of the planet, people came together, not just to prepare for conflict, but to celebrate life itself. Art, poetry, and stories poured out of communities, each creation a testament to the indomitable human spirit. For the first time in history, Earth truly felt united, not because of shared borders or ideologies, but because of a common identity rooted in creativity, empathy, and courage. Little did either side know, this was only the beginning. The Vaylith had underestimated humanity once. They wouldn't make the same mistake twice. The Vaylith scout ship lingered over Antarctica for days, its presence casting a shadow of uncertainty across the globe. Despite humanity's bold display of unity and creativity, the aliens showed no signs of leaving or explaining their intentions. Instead, they began deploying smaller probes that descended into Earth's atmosphere, scanning cities, oceans, and forests with relentless precision. These probes were silent, unyielding, and seemingly invincible, shrugging off attempts to intercept them with conventional weapons. Governments around the world struggled to maintain order as fear spread among the population. While some people continued to sing, create art, and find solace in community, others succumbed to panic. Riots broke out in major cities, supply chains faltered, and misinformation ran rampant. Yet amidst the chaos, pockets of resistance emerged. Ordinary men and women determined to protect their homes and loved ones. Dr. Elena Vasquez found herself at the center of these efforts. She had been appointed as the lead scientist on a new initiative called Project Resonance, tasked with finding ways to communicate more effectively with the Vaylith, while also preparing for potential conflict. The project brought together experts from diverse fields, engineers, linguists, psychologists, and even artists, all united by a shared goal: understanding the aliens and defending humanity. One breakthrough came unexpectedly during a brainstorming session led by Arjun Patel. Inspired by the earlier success of using music to connect with the Vaylith, he suggested experimenting with other forms of human expression. Music is just one part of who we are, he explained. What if we try combining it with visual art or storytelling? Maybe we can show them not just what we do, but why we do it. Elena seized on the idea, proposing an ambitious experiment, broadcasting a multimedia message to the scout ship. This message would include images, sounds, and even snippets of human history, everything from cave paintings and ancient myths to modern scientific achievements. It was risky. There was no guarantee the Vaylith would understand or respond. But it was also a chance to reveal the depth of humanity's ingenuity and resilience. As the team worked tirelessly to assemble the broadcast, something remarkable happened. In small towns and remote villages far from the reach of governments or media, ordinary people started taking matters into their own hands. Farmers used plows to carve messages into fields, spelling out words like peace and we are one. Artists painted murals depicting scenes of hope and cooperation. Even children joined in, drawing pictures on sidewalks and sending paper airplanes skyward, each carrying a handwritten note addressed to the stars above. These grassroots efforts caught the attention of the Vaylith probes, which began altering their patterns to investigate. One probe hovered over a field where a farmer named Miguel had etched a massive sunflower surrounded by the phrase, "Life finds a way." Another descended near a coastal village where fishermen had arranged colorful boats into the shape of a heart. Each act of defiance was small, yet collectively they formed a tapestry of humanity's spirit, a testament to the power of individual actions when woven together. Back aboard the Erindor, Commander Zyrak watched recordings of these events with growing frustration. He couldn't comprehend why the humans refused to submit. Every tactic he employed to intimidate them only seemed to strengthen their resolve. Worse still, Elder Silra appeared increasingly fascinated by their behavior. "They see beauty in imperfection," she observed thoughtfully, pointing to footage of a child painting a crude but heartfelt picture of Earth surrounded by stars. "Their creations are flawed, unpredictable, and yet they inspire others to join them. How does such chaos produce unity?" Zyrak clenched his fists. "It's illogical. They should be afraid. They should beg for mercy. But instead, they celebrate?" Silra turned to him, her gaze piercing. "Perhaps fear is not the only motivator. Perhaps there is strength in connection, in choosing to stand together rather than fall apart." Meanwhile, tensions on Earth reached a boiling point when one of the Veilith probes attacked a civilian convoy, attempting to deliver supplies to a refugee camp. The attack was swift and devastating, obliterating vehicles and leaving survivors scattered in the wreckage. News of the incident spread quickly, igniting outrage across the planet. In response, a group of engineers and hackers based in Silicon Valley developed a daring plan. Using salvaged parts and open-source technology, they built a network of drones equipped with EMP, electromagnetic pulse devices, designed to disable the alien probes temporarily. Dubbed Operation Starfall, the mission involved coordinating hundreds of volunteers to deploy the drones simultaneously in key locations worldwide. On the night of the operation, thousands gathered to watch as the drones took flight, their lights blinking like fireflies against the dark sky. When the EMPs activated, several probes sputtered and fell silent, crashing to the ground. Crowds erupted in cheers, celebrating the first tangible victory against the invaders. For a brief moment, it felt as though humanity might actually have a fighting chance, but the celebration was short-lived. Within hours, the scout ship responded by launching a wave of energy pulses that disrupted global power grids, plunging entire regions into darkness. Hospitals struggled to keep life support systems running, communication networks collapsed, and panic surged anew. It was clear the Veilith were done observing. They were ready to escalate. Yet even in the face of this new threat, humanity's resilience shone through. Neighbors banded together to share food and resources. Candlelit. Vigils replaced electric lights, and acoustic guitars replaced amplifiers. People sang songs of hope under starlit skies, refusing to let despair take hold. Elena stood atop a hill outside the UN headquarters, watching the city flicker back to life as emergency generators kicked in. She felt a mix of exhaustion and awe. Humanity was fragile, imperfect, and often divided, but in moments like this, it revealed a strength that could not be measured by technology or force alone. As dawn broke over the horizon, the scout ship sent another transmission. This time it wasn't a warning or a threat. It was a question. A single word rendered in glowing symbols that hovered in the air. The Veilith's question, "Why?" hung in the air like a challenge, both literal and existential. Humanity had faced countless trials throughout its history, but this was different. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about defining who they were as a species. The aliens' inquiry seemed to demand more than an answer. It sought understanding. Dr. Elena Vasquez stared at the holographic projection of the glowing symbols hovering above the UN headquarters. Her mind raced with possibilities. What did the Veilith truly want to know? Why humans resisted instead of submitting? Why they created art, told stories, and fought for one another despite their flaws? Or perhaps something deeper, an explanation for why humanity refused to bow even when faced with overwhelming odds. "This isn't just a question," she murmured, to Arjun Patel, who stood beside her, his laptop open on a nearby table. "It's a test," Arjun nodded thoughtfully. "They're trying to make sense of us. Maybe we've been too focused on showing them what we can do, and not enough on telling them why we do it." Elena turned to face him fully. "Then let's give them our truth. Not just facts or data, but the essence of being human." The task force convened once again, this time with renewed urgency. General Marcus Hale still advocated for military preparedness, but even he acknowledged that brute force alone wouldn't win against an enemy so advanced. Instead, the group agreed to craft a response that combined science, emotion, and philosophy, a message that would encapsulate humanity's core values. Over the next few days, teams worked around the clock to assemble what they called the Human Codex. This multimedia transmission included everything from scientific breakthroughs and historical milestones to personal letters written by ordinary people. A grandmother recorded a video talking about her grandchildren and how much joy they brought her. A soldier shared his story of sacrifice and duty. Artists contributed paintings, sculptures, and performances, all meant to convey the complexity and beauty of human life. At the heart of the Codex was a single narrative thread, the story of resilience. From ancient civilizations rebuilding, after natural disasters to modern societies overcoming pandemics, wars, and economic collapse, humanity's ability to adapt and persevere became the central theme. The message concluded with a simple declaration: "We endure because we care, for each other, for our world, and for the future, and that is why we will never surrender." When the Human Codex was broadcast toward the scout ship, the reaction was immediate and unexpected. For the first time, the Valith responded, not with images of destruction, but with a series of intricate patterns resembling constellations. These patterns shifted and evolved, eventually forming a three-dimensional map of stars and planets. Among them was Earth, depicted not as a target, but as a luminous beacon surrounded by swirling colors. Scientists scrambled to interpret the meaning behind the map. Some believed it represented the Valith's empire, while others thought it might be a warning of impending danger. But Elena noticed something else. Certain coordinates within the map pulsed faintly, almost rhythmically, as if inviting further exploration. "It's a puzzle," she said aloud during a late-night meeting. "They're challenging us to solve it to prove our worth." Her theory gained traction quickly. If the Valith valued intellect and problem-solving, then solving this cosmic riddle could shift their perception of humanity. Teams of astrophysicists, mathematicians, and cryptographers dove into the data, working tirelessly to decode the pulsing signals. Meanwhile, ordinary citizens around the world joined in, using online platforms to collaborate and share insights. Once again, humanity rallied together, not through violence or fear, but through curiosity and determination. As hours turned into days, progress was slow but steady. Then came the breakthrough. A young astronomy student named Priya Rao discovered that the pulsing coordinates corresponded to specific frequencies of light emitted by distant stars. When overlaid onto the map, these frequencies revealed a hidden trajectory, a path leading to a remote region of space near the edge of the Milky Way galaxy. The implications were staggering. Was this a trap, a test, or perhaps an invitation? Whatever the case, humanity now had a choice to make: stay and defend Earth or venture into the unknown to confront the Valith on their own terms. Back aboard the Erindor, Commander Zyrak watched the unfolding events with mounting unease. The humans had deciphered the map far faster than he anticipated, displaying a level of ingenuity that unsettled him. Worse still, Elder Silra seemed increasingly convinced that humanity posed a unique threat, one rooted not in power, but in purpose. "They see beyond themselves," she mused, studying recordings of humans collaborating across borders and cultures. "Their actions are driven not by logic alone, but by connection, by love." Zyrak bristled at the word. "Love is weakness. It clouds judgment and breeds chaos." "Or it inspires greatness," Silra countered softly. "Perhaps we have misunderstood them all along." Meanwhile, back on Earth, the decision to follow the map sparked heated debates. Some argued that sending a delegation into space would leave Earth vulnerable. Others insisted it was the only way to demonstrate humanity's courage and resolve. In the end, a compromise was reached. A small crew would embark on a mission to investigate the coordinates, while the rest of the planet prepared for any eventualities. Elena volunteered to lead the expedition, knowing full well the risks involved. She was joined by Arjun, whose technical expertise would be invaluable, and a diverse team of scientists, engineers, and diplomats. As they boarded the hastily retrofitted spacecraft Unity, millions gathered to watch the launch, their faces filled with hope and trepidation. As the engines roared to life and the ship ascended into the heavens, Elena gazed out the window at the shrinking blue orb below. For the first time in weeks, she felt a glimmer of optimism. Humanity had been tested repeatedly, pushed to its limits, but it had risen to the occasion every time, and now they were taking the fight to the stars. Journey aboard the Unity was fraught with tension and uncertainty. As humanity's first emissaries to venture beyond Earth's solar system, the crew carried not just their own hopes, but the collective dreams of billions. The destination, a remote region of space marked by the pulsing coordinates, was still days away, yet every moment felt like an eternity. Each member of the team grappled with their own fears, doubts, and resolve as they prepared for what awaited them. Dr. Elena Vasquez spent most of her time poring over data from the ship's sensors, searching for any clues that might hint at the Veilith's intentions. She couldn't shake the feeling that this mission was more than a test. It was a gauntlet designed to push humanity to its limits. Beside her, Arjun Patel worked tirelessly to ensure the ship's systems remained operational, his fingers flying across keyboards as he fine-tuned algorithms and rerouted power supplies. Despite their differences in expertise, both shared a quiet determination to see this through. Meanwhile, the rest of the crew wrestled with personal struggles. Captain Mei Lin, a seasoned astronaut chosen to lead the expedition, found herself questioning whether she was truly ready for such a monumental responsibility. Her nights were restless, filled with visions of failure and loss. Diplomat Javier Morales, tasked with representing Earth in potential negotiations, rehearsed speeches. In his head, knowing that words alone might not be enough against an alien species so fundamentally different from humanity. And then there was Lieutenant Samir Khan, a former fighter pilot whose instincts screamed for action, even as logic told him patience was key. As the Unity approached the designated coordinates, the ship's instruments began detecting unusual energy signatures emanating from a nearby nebula. Swirling clouds of gas and dust obscured their view, but within the chaos, something massive loomed, an immense structure unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. It was a colossal ring-shaped construct, its surface etched with intricate patterns that shimmered faintly in the starlight. The scale of it defied comprehension. It dwarfed the largest human-made structures back on Earth. "This is it," Elena whispered, her voice tinged with awe and trepidation. "Whatever they want us to find or face is inside." The crew prepared cautiously, donning protective suits and arming themselves with the limited tools at their disposal. They knew better than to underestimate the Veilith after everything Earth had endured. But as they entered the construct through a glowing aperture, they discovered something unexpected. Silence. No alarms blared, no defenses activated. Instead, the interior was eerily serene, bathed in soft, golden light that seemed to pulse gently, almost rhythmically. Inside, the walls were adorned with holographic displays showing scenes of countless civilizations, some thriving, others crumbling under the weight of war or despair. Among these projections, one stood out, images of Earth captured from orbit, showcasing humanity's achievements alongside its struggles. There were shots of bustling cities, vast oceans teeming with life and people helping each other during times of crisis. It was as if the Veilith were presenting a mirror for humanity to reflect upon itself. But then came the final display, a stark contrast to the rest. It depicted Earth engulfed in flames, its skies choked with smoke, its oceans barren. Below, the image floated a single word, rendered in glowing letters. Choice. Elena froze, her breath catching in her throat. "They're giving us a decision to make," she said softly. "Stay on our current path, or change course entirely." Arjun stepped forward, his brow furrowed. "Change how? What are they asking us to do?" Before anyone could answer, the ground beneath them trembled slightly, and a deep hum resonated through the chamber. From the center of the room rose a platform bearing a crystalline orb, its surface alive with shifting colors. When Captain May touched it hesitantly, a flood of sensations overwhelmed her. visions of possibilities, futures shaped by humanity's choices. Some paths led to peace and prosperity, while others ended in ruin. The message was clear. The future of Earth depended not on external forces, but on humanity itself. Back on Earth, the situation grew increasingly dire. Without the Unity's presence, the planet faced mounting challenges. The Veilith probes intensified their attacks, targeting critical infrastructure and communication networks. Power grids failed, hospitals struggled to operate, and food shortages became widespread. Panic spread like wildfire, threatening to unravel the fragile unity humanity had forged. Yet amidst the chaos, acts of heroism emerged. Volunteers organized relief efforts, delivering supplies to those in need. Neighbors banded together to protect one another, sharing whatever resources they had. In one particularly moving instance, a group of musicians performed a live concert in the middle of a blackout, using acoustic instruments to lift spirits and remind people of their shared humanity. Their performance was broadcast via makeshift radios, reaching millions who listened in silence, tears streaming down their faces. General Marcus Hale coordinated military efforts to defend key locations, though he knew conventional weapons would only delay the inevitable. He reached out to civilian leaders, urging collaboration between governments, private organizations, and ordinary citizens. "We can't win this fight alone," he admitted during a global address, "but together we stand a chance." On board the Unity, the crew debated their next move. Should they attempt to negotiate with the Veilith directly, or should they focus on deciphering the meaning behind the orb and its visions? Tensions ran high as tempers flared, each member grappling with the weight of their decisions. Finally, Javier Morales spoke up, his voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. "We've already shown them who we are," he said, firmly. "Through our art, our resilience, our willingness to help each other, even when all hope seems lost. Maybe that's the answer they're looking for. Not perfection, but progress. Not domination, but connection." His words struck a chord. Slowly, the crew began working together again, pooling their knowledge and creativity to interpret the orb's messages. They realized the Veilith weren't merely testing humanity's intelligence or strength. They were challenging them to embrace their capacity for growth, compassion, and unity. As the Unity prepared to leave the construct and return home, Elena paused to look back at the glowing ring one last time. She felt a surge of pride, not because humanity had solved every problem or defeated every foe, but because they had refused to give up. Even now, battered and bruised, they continued to fight for a better tomorrow. The Veilith watched silently from afar, their initial arrogance giving way to something akin to respect. Commander Zyrak stewed in frustration, unable to deny the evidence before him. Elder Silra, however, allowed herself a rare smile. "They are more than we thought," she murmured. "Perhaps more than we are." The Unity returned to Earth with a renewed sense of purpose, its crew carrying not just answers, but also questions that would shape humanity's future. The crystalline orb had revealed the Veilith's ultimate challenge, a choice between destruction and transformation. It wasn't enough for humanity to survive. They had to evolve. And now, as the ship descended through Earth's atmosphere, the crew knew they were bringing back more than knowledge. They were bringing hope. Upon landing, Elena Vasquez and her team were greeted by a world teetering on the brink of collapse. The Veilith probes continued their relentless assault, targeting everything from power plants to water supplies. Cities lay in ruins and millions had been displaced. Yet amidst the devastation, pockets of resilience persisted. People gathered in makeshift shelters, sharing stories, songs, and laughter despite the hardship. Humanity's spirit refused to be extinguished. Elena wasted no time addressing the global task force assembled at the UN headquarters. Standing before leaders, scientists, and ordinary citizens who had tuned in via emergency broadcasts, she recounted the journey aboard the Unity and the revelations within the alien construct. Her voice trembled with emotion as she described the visions of Earth's potential futures, the promise of peace and prosperity versus the specter of annihilation. They aren't here to conquer us, she concluded. They're here to decide whether we deserve a place among the stars. But the decision isn't theirs alone, it's ours. We must prove that we are capable of change, of growth, of unity. Her words resonated deeply, sparking a wave of action across the planet. Communities banded together to rebuild what had been lost, prioritizing cooperation over competition. Engineers worked around the clock to develop sustainable technologies, while farmers shared seeds and resources to combat food shortages. Artists painted murals depicting visions of a brighter future, inspiring others to believe in the possibility of renewal. But the greatest breakthrough came when Arjun Patel unveiled a bold plan based on his analysis of the crystalline orb. He proposed creating a massive planet-wide network of interconnected systems, what he called the Harmony Grid. This grid would harness renewable energy sources, distribute resources equitably, and facilitate communication without relying on vulnerable centralized infrastructure. Most importantly, it would serve as a symbol of humanity's collective will to adapt and thrive. Building the Harmony Grid required unprecedented collaboration. Governments set aside political differences, corporations opened their patents for public use, and volunteers from all walks of life contributed their skills. Factories repurposed machinery to produce solar panels and wind turbines, while engineers designed modular units that could be deployed rapidly in hard-hit areas. Within weeks, the first nodes of the grid went online, powering hospitals, schools, and refugee camps. As the grid expanded, so did humanity's morale. For the first time since the Valith's arrival, people began to feel a sense of control over their fate. Even the aliens took notice. The probes, which had once moved with cold precision, now hesitated, their movements less aggressive. It was as if they were waiting, watching to see how humanity would respond to their own creation. On board the Erendor, Commander Zirak struggled to reconcile what he was witnessing. The humans weren't simply rebuilding, they were reinventing themselves. Their actions defied logic, yet they yielded undeniable results. Entire regions stabilized, conflicts eased, and even the most desperate populations found ways to persevere. For the first time, doubt crept into Zirak's mind. They're adapting faster than we anticipated, he admitted during a council meeting. Their ingenuity is unsettling. Elder Silra nodded solemnly. It is more than ingenuity. They are driven by something deeper, a shared vision of what they can become. That is what makes them dangerous and extraordinary. Despite these observations, Zirak remained unconvinced. He ordered the deployment of additional forces, determined to test humanity's resolve one final time. The Valith fleet converged above Earth, their ships blotting out the sun as they prepared for a decisive strike. Panic swept across the globe, but instead of succumbing to fear, humanity responded with an act of unparalleled bravery. In cities and villages alike, people gathered outdoors holding candles, lanterns, and glowing devices powered by the Harmony Grid. They sang songs of unity, their voices rising in harmony despite the looming threat overhead. Messages of peace and hope were broadcast into space, accompanied by images of the grid and the progress humanity had made. It was a plea, not for mercy, but for understanding. Among those leading the effort was Javier Morales, who stood atop a hill overlooking a sea of lights in New York City. His voice carried through speakers as he addressed both his fellow humans and the watching aliens. "We are flawed," he declared, his tone steady and heartfelt. "We make mistakes, we fight amongst ourselves, and we often fail to live up to our ideals. But we also dream, create, and love with a passion that cannot be extinguished. You asked us why we resist. This is why. Because we believe in tomorrow. Because we choose to build, not destroy. And because we refuse to let fear define us." The transmission reached the Valith fleet, where Elder Silra watched intently. She turned to Zirak, her expression resolute. "This is the moment of truth," she said quietly. "Will you continue to see them as adversaries or acknowledge them as equals?" For a long moment, silence filled the chamber. Then, slowly, Zirak lowered his head. "Perhaps we have misjudged them." At his command, the Valith fleet withdrew, retreating beyond Earth's orbit. The attack never came. Instead, a final message was transmitted to humanity. You have proven yourselves worthy. Grow wisely. The departure of the Valith fleet marked the beginning of a new chapter for humanity, a chapter defined not by conquest or survival, but by transformation. As the alien ships vanished into the void of space, Earth was left with a profound sense of relief and an even deeper realization. They had faced the ultimate test and emerged stronger, not because of their technology or military might, but because of their unity, creativity, and resilience. In the days that followed, the world came together in ways that would have been unimaginable before the crisis. The Harmony Grid became more than just a tool for recovery. It symbolized humanity's ability to adapt and collaborate on a global scale. Solar panels glittered across rooftops, wind turbines spun gracefully in open fields, and communities thrived as resources were shared equitably. What had once seemed impossible, breaking down barriers between nations, ideologies, and cultures, now felt within reach. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood atop a hill overlooking one such community, her heart swelling with pride. The small village had been devastated during the Valith attacks, yet its people had rebuilt using sustainable methods taught through the grid. Children played beneath makeshift solar-powered lights, while elders shared stories around communal fires. A mural painted on the side of a building depicted the Unity spacecraft surrounded by stars, with the words, "Together we rise," written boldly beneath it. "It's beautiful," Arjun Patel said softly, joining her at the edge of the hill. His laptop dangled from his shoulder, still filled with data from their journey, though he rarely opened it anymore. For now, he preferred to witness firsthand the changes sweeping across the planet. Elena nodded, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "Do you think we'll ever see them again?" she asked, referring to the Valith. Arjun hesitated before answering. "Maybe, but I don't think it matters. They gave us something far more valuable than answers. They gave us clarity about who we are, what we're capable of, and what we can become." Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of laughter below. A group of villagers had gathered around a musician strumming a guitar, singing songs of hope and gratitude. The melody carried upward, mingling with the cool evening breeze. It was a reminder that even after everything they'd endured, humanity still found joy in the simplest things. Back at the UN headquarters, leaders from every corner of the globe convened for a historic summit. No longer divided by borders or agendas, they worked together to draft what would later be known as the Accord of Unity, a declaration committing all nations to prioritize peace, sustainability, and cooperation. Diplomat Javier Morales played a key role in shaping the document, drawing inspiration from the lessons learned during humanity's darkest hour. "We've proven that when we stand together, there's nothing we can't overcome," he told the assembly, his voice resonating through the chamber. "Let this moment mark the start of a new era, not just for Earth, but for all life in the universe." The Accord sparked a wave of initiatives aimed at fostering global progress. Education programs emphasized critical thinking, empathy, and environmental stewardship. Space exploration efforts gained renewed momentum, with plans underway to establish permanent colonies on the Moon and Mars. Humanity's gaze turned outward once again, not out of fear, but out of curiosity and aspiration. Captain Mei Lin, leader of the Unity mission, found herself reflecting on the journey as she stood before a crowd of aspiring astronauts at a newly established space academy. "Out there among the stars, we discovered something unexpected," she said, pointing to the night sky. "We discovered ourselves, our flaws, yes, but also our strengths. And if we could face the Valith and prevail, imagine what else we can achieve." Her words inspired countless young minds, including those of children who had grown up watching the skies with wonder. In classrooms, parks, and homes, discussions about humanity's place in the cosmos flourished. Art, music, and literature reflected this newfound optimism, celebrating not just survival, but growth. Yet amidst the celebration, humanity did not forget the sacrifices made along the way. Memorials were erected in honor of those who had lost their lives during the crisis, each engraved with the phrase "for tomorrow." These monuments served as reminders of the cost of complacency and the power of collective action. One evening, months after the Valith's departure, Elena returned to her observatory in Chile. She climbed the stairs to the rooftop where her telescope awaited. The sky above was clear, dotted with countless stars. As she gazed upward, she thought about the Valith and their cryptic message. "Grow wisely." She smiled faintly, feeling a quiet certainty settle over her. Humanity had already begun to do just that. The road ahead would be long and challenging, but they had taken the first step, one born not of fear, but of hope. As the hours passed, Elena noticed something unusual, a faint glimmer moving across the heavens, unlike any satellite or natural phenomenon she'd seen before. It pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. For a moment, she wondered if it was a sign from the Valith, or perhaps another civilization watching silently from afar, but then she chuckled softly to herself. Whatever lay beyond, humanity was ready. They had faced the unknown and emerged, changed, not perfect but better, and that, she realized, was enough.